Good evening, everyone, and welcome into Season 2 of the Forge Podcast, everybody. My name is Ryan Messer, and this is the Forge Podcast, brought to you, as always, by Shotgun Sports Network Alabama of the Shotgun Sports Network. Again, Season 2 is hard to believe, but we also have a lot to get into today. The Bulls had a full week at home this past weekend. The Squadron had a pair of games on the road. And the Legion had their preseason friendly with the Atlanta United at Protective Stadium. We also have a special guest with us this evening, but before we get too far, I want to thank you guys for watching, whether it's on Facebook and YouTube, or if you are listening to us on iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even on Audible. I want to thank you guys for your support and really do appreciate it. So, we also have to say thank you to Blue Spring Living Water. You guys know it. They've been keeping us hydrated for almost a year now. They are right up the road in Blount County, Alabama. And they are bottled right at the source. So there's no chance of contamination through the transportation process or anything like that. So make sure you are drinking safe water with Blue Spring Living Water. You can find them at your local grocer, or you can have them deliver it right to your door. Make sure you go to bluespringlivingwater.com for more information on that. Something else you should be safe in is on the internet, and you shouldn't have to worry about any kind of malware or anything like that affecting you. So make sure that you are taking steps toward your cybersecurity with NordVPN. Right now, you can get a discount if you hit the link in the description on their subscription. So make sure you click that link and stream safely with NordVPN. And with that, this is Season 2 of the Forge Podcast. We're going to start things off with a special guest. We're glad to have him. You might know him from X, from Southern Charm, and he is one of the Birmingham Stallion shirtless guys. This is Scout from Southern Charm Sports. Welcome in, Scout. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I
Awesome.
just got in back from Mobile. The Senior Bowl, spent Thursday, Friday, and Saturday down there. Came back yesterday morning. It was real cold in South Central Lower Alabama last night. But made it home safely, and here we are.
Awesome. Like, I saw a little few clips from the Senior Bowl. I saw where Milrow had a interception, but he did also throw a touchdown pass to one of the Auburn receivers. So it was insane.
Yeah.
How was that? What did you see out there?
So I did see it was I believe it was Chimere DK from Florida that caught that pass. But I did see that happen. It was pretty solid. I thought Milrow honestly, like, yes, there are some dead balls, but every single quarterback had some dead balls, right? Like these guys played 13 games, 14 games. Riley played 16 games, I believe. Yeah, 12 plus 4. So it's like these guys, they're tore up, right? Quarterback's one of the toughest positions to play. You have to keep yourself, so engaged and your body and so engaged and everything. And honestly, like I don't think it was that bad, right? Even Tyler Shaw, people had some of his stuff where they're just like, hey, oh, he didn't do this right, he didn't do that right. I'm like, these pro coaches, they're not looking at every single play, right? They're gonna look at, hey, can he do this? Can he do that? Can he run play action? Can he call an audible? Can he read a defense? That kind of thing. And I think especially there was one play I got a few pictures of that I'll end up posting probably whenever this gets posted too. But he was in the pocket. CJ Dupree, he was blocking on the outside. He kind of gets pushed to the right side. He literally steps up into the pocket, runs a little bit on the right side, and then runs for a first down. And I'm like, hey, like that's pretty good play right there. Pocket awareness. And it wasn't like he was just tucking and running at first contact. No, like he made his reads and then he ran downfield right when nothing was there. So yeah, so overall, pretty good day from Jalen. I think it was just a lot of, and I don't want to call Bama fans out here, but I think it was just a lot of Bama fans that were being a little hypercritical of the man. Like a lot of people think that he was the reason that Bama was the way they were, but it's never one guy, right? But yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us about a little bit what you do over at Southern Charm.
Yeah. So we cover high school football, college football in the state. So we cover it basically, I say border to border to border to border, right? So we've gone as far as, Central Phoenix City, near Columbus. We've gone down to Mobile before. We went to Foley for a game last year with Perry Thompson there. Um, North, I will say we haven't been to Huntsville yet under the Southern Charm name. I have been in the past to some Huntsville games or some Northern Alabama games, but the highest we went this year was Moody, probably, or one of the pick your poison with one of the Birmingham schools. But we never made it into that top Huntsville area for a football game. But we will soon. I know James Clemens just got Juan Johnson. Shout out Juan Johnson, friend of the show. And we definitely want to be able to highlight him in his first year at James Clemens. He moved from Baker. But overall, we like to cover more high school football, college football stuff, especially when it comes to the G5 teams. Big supporters of Troy, South, Jack State. We're trying to make our way into UAB. It's a little bit more of a tough shell to crack. But overall, we just love football. We love other sports too. I know when I was down in Mobile, some of our guys at WNSP, shout out Nick Wiggins. He helped us get in on the South Alabama basketball game. Got some shots there. Met some people there, that kind of thing. But overall, we do a lot of high school. If I had to say it in short, because I think I've said it 20 times in the past 3 days, but just high school football, college football in the state of Alabama and the greater region.
Awesome. So how did that get started?
Yeah, so Um, essentially in 2023 at this point, January 2023. For those of y'all familiar with the USFL Discord, those guys like Ducky and I think Ace was in there and Webb and the Ref and Zach Keelman, those being from UFM and PFN. All those guys were in there, and I was like, hey, like, so the first time, Bella Melifonwu was on this Ask Me Anything thing, right, for the USFL Discord. Uh, I'm forgetting the admin that was there, but the admin, I love him to death, and he made sure that whenever they had a Q&A, he would tell me beforehand. I'll get a little thing. I forgot the other guy, but it was one of the Italian safeties because his dad had a pizza shop. Anyways, I made this full little list of things to ask, right? And if I could find it, it's probably I'll probably send it to you so you can edit it in. It'll probably like right there or something like that. But it was like a whole little list. It was like notable teammates, that played in the NFL or were in the USFL. It was who were their coaches, because one of them had like Chip Kelly under the radar, right? And I was like, on top of that, I even like did a deep dive because apparently I was the first media person that actually knew about the pizza place. Because it was like, I hate that I'm forgetting it. I know he follows me on Twitter. He'll probably end up seeing this. But his dad had a pizza place, and apparently one of the days in Birmingham, unknown to some of the media people, and really to me even to this point, but his dad had come down to do like, to do um basically give them some pizza. And then all of a sudden after that, I think Ace and them were doing those. He was like, hey, you should like consider doing this for real. And then so I wrote under Scout, which is where the Scout name comes from, but there's a whole story behind that name, or that alias really. And then after that, I wrote a little thing about most improved players. Cam Eckers Taylor was on there as one of my most improved players for the season. He was with the show, no, he was with the Stars that year. And then he followed me, he quote tweeted it. And then I was kind of like, okay. So at that point, I was USFLians on Twitter. And then it was July 4th of 2023. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this like for real, right? So we were in the lab thinking of different names. I was making logos together, and then I kind of made one where it was like Southern with an arc. And I'm like, well, I can't be like, Southern Sports. We got to like spice it up. And I think at the time, Robert, who had to retire a few months ago, but his mom or something was within shouting distance and was like, Southern Charm, Southern Charm. And so we made Southern Charm, and then we're like Southern Charm Sports, SCS. And we kind of were like, because most brands are known by their acronym nowadays, right? UFM, PFN, the USFL, UFL, whatever you say it, right? And so we were like SCS. Does that come off the tongue? Yes, it does. So we kind of got there. And then a week later, I met Prattville's coach, and I was like, hey, can I do y'all's videography, y'all's photography? And he was like, yeah, sure. So the past 2 years, I've been a volunteer doing videography, photography, and creative, like basically being the volunteer creative director for Prattville, until they got a full-time AD to help do that kind of stuff too. And then with all that stuff, after that, I've met plenty of people in high school football, college football in the area, and even now Senior Bowl, QB country, all that kind of stuff, just to help improve our product, help diversify our product. Because, not I think one thing that our account kind of succeeds at, not everyone wants to be just like football, football, football. Well, some people do, but not everyone, right? So it's like we kind of have, that comedic effect, right? Or that comedic flavor. We'll sneak in a few lines every now and then, or a few jokes. Like I know people loved when I was at that concert, the free concert, shout out to Senior Bowl, with Sammy Kershaw and Eli Young Band. I was like, hey, come holla at your boy, or come holla. And then people just, they loved that. They thought it was funny, just being, nonchalant with it. And then something we had done previously is I was be like, oh, I'm on the road or whatever. And I had a little teal, I don't have it in my room right now, but I had a little teal Montgomery Biscuits cap, and that was the cap I wore everywhere. And then it's like now I'll just like swap it up. This cap will probably end up being the new cap or whatever. It's a little Reebok Jags cap I got from the Vault in Mobile. But yeah, but it's been pretty fun. We're a year and a half in now on this. We've been able to go to just about any high school in the state we've wanted to. We've met about every trainer in the state at this point, probably the bigger trainers in at least Birmingham, Montgomery, and in Mobile at this point. Shout out Mobile, that would be Corey Creighton at Now Fitness in Mobile. We had just met him in the Senior Bowl trip. Haven't even made that post yet, but hey, first to hear. Um, but yeah, but overall, and then past high school football, we've been able to go to Troy, South. We did get a ticket to a UAB game. Now, I will say it kind of lines up perfectly with Jack State. Last year with Jack State, one of the boosters or one of the people was just like, hey, like, I have a ticket to the game if you want to go. I can't really get you field access because we only had, 400 followers at this point. But then this time around, shout out Ronnie Smith. I think it's Ronnie Smith. I'm so sorry if I forgot it. But the SID, the new SID there, I had a good connection with him throughout the summer. He couldn't make that first game work with Coastal, but I went up there, got some shots of there, met some other people, and he was like, he texted me the day after. He's like, hey man, sorry, if there's any game, just give me a week in advance. We went to MTSU and we went to Jack State. So with that, we had Jack State, Troy, and South all under our belt by that point. And then yeah, so we're looking to develop even more connections, especially in the G5, because like it's a lot easier to feel accomplished whenever it's like a little G5 video where I might be one of 3 people at the game versus, having to race the other 40 people in Tuscaloosa or Auburn that are also posting. Because like I love an Auburn game or a Alabama game. Don't get me wrong, like that's the pinnacle of college football right now is the SEC. But I'm not going to go there for play by play, right? Because like I'm having to battle the 40 people like in the stadium, the 30 people at home on their computer, like trying to record the stream and everything. But overall, we started a year and a half ago, and that was basically a timeline of events for how we got to the point where that we're at right now.
Awesome. So, how did that passion of sports and especially football start out for you?
Yeah. So essentially, as a kid, I played, flag football, pee wee ball, whatever, right? And then I moved from Florida to Alabama. I kind of lost interest in it, honestly, right? I think it was like my friends were keeping me in it, right? Ended up becoming a band kid or whatever. But then not when COVID hit, but right before COVID hit, 2019, the AAF hits, and I go to a Birmingham Iron game. I almost said Birmingham Stallions. I went to a Birmingham Iron game, and they were playing the Orlando Apollos. And honestly, at this point, I was rooting for Orlando because they had Steve Spurrier. They had, the cooler colors or whatever. Because, like, okay, looking back on it, I think the Iron are iconic. It matches the city, matches the vibe. But I didn't know that much about Birmingham at the time, so I was just like,
Mm,
ooh, blue, that's cool, that's cool. And then the little like Apollo logo, I thought was cooler than just having a little stripe of silver that I now miss dearly. But yeah, but I went to that and it kind of like opened something up in me. I was like, hey, I need to like start looking about at this again. And I had been playing Madden or whatever, but I really got into it. Like I even downloaded NFL Head Coach '06. I went to GameStop and got NFL Head Coach '09, right? Like just like these old like hardcore football games, right? And started just diving in, like what's like the inner depths of like a West Coast offense, right? Or like what's the difference between like a West Coast zone scheme and a West Coast like power run scheme or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like just crazy things like that. And then over COVID, when COVID hit, I was like, okay, well, I'm at home. And I graduated high school in 21, so I was a junior. So all we really had was like, okay, well, just make sure you take your final in May or something like that, right? And I was like, okay. So COVID hit, I got really into football, but just looking at stuff online, the Pat McAfee show that kind of started right then too, and then some of the other stuff that had also started around that time regarding football. It was really cool though, and then being able to look at the USFL the next year, and then the XFL coming back and everything. It was, in my opinion, it was really nice. And I will say the 2020 XFL I was actually into too before the all that hit, but it was more like it really hit me after the XFL died that I was like, okay, I really need football, right? So I dove in on all those video games and whatever. So yeah, so the passion for it, honestly though, it's always been there, but kind of like got reignited from the AAF and everything.
awesome. So, you pretty much said, when did you begin following the Stallions?
Yeah, literally day one, bro. Like so AAF was in Birmingham and I kind of took it for granted, right? We only went to 2 games, I believe, and we left one game early because it rained. Um, and I kind of took it for granted, right? So then the XFL comes about, and the Birmingham was one of the target markets, but we never got a team. I wish we could have gotten like a modern day Barracudas. That would have been great. Um, but it is what it is. And then they announced the Stallions, and I'm like, oh my lord! And then the bigger thing with that, because they had also announced that it would be a hub system, and then like a week later, they're like, oh yeah, the hub's going to be in Birmingham. I'm like, what? Okay. So that year, like that first USFL year, if I had an account, I would have been just like UFO or currently UFL update on Instagram, how that man was just posting all the time. Like I would have been just like him, bro. Like I would have been just like him, posting every single thing because like I was up so late at night whenever the Panthers lost on a last second missed field goal at 12:30 in the morning or whatever. Like that first year was peak. And I know I had like a little burner at the time, right? Just like my gaming account that I would use and like reply to Ducky to or something like that. And past that, it was just fun, right? Going to games was fun. At that time, we had games at Legion as well. I remember that Legion Breakers game was just electric. I
Mm-hmm.
still think I've said it in the Stallions group chat multiple times. I've said it in the stadium multiple times. We need one game in Legion every year. Like, put the throwback game in Legion if we're gonna have a throwback game. And I'm like, somebody was like, "Oh, I bet they don't have a jumbotron." I'm like, "Okay, that tells me all I need to know." If you haven't been to Legion, they've upgraded it even since like we were in it 2 years ago. They have new turf, they have a upgraded jumbotron. Like it's nice, and the city's putting money into it, at least enough. Because like yes, in about 20, 30 years, it's gonna be gone. But like we should still have an occasional event in there to like cherish it because like that was the home of college football for a
Mm-hmm.
long time in the state of Alabama. It had the Iron Bowl until
Mm-hmm.
'94. It had a bunch of state championships in it. I know, like being from Prattville, all of our state championships were there, other
Mm-hmm.
than the '84 one, or I think there's like one that was in Auburn. But yeah, uh, yeah, essentially, I've been a Stallions fan since day one. It would probably be hard for me to like be physically there and not root for them, if you know what I'm saying. Like if I'm a media person, I can totally be a media person, but it's like it would take a lot for me to ever lose my fandom, is what I'm saying. Same thing with the
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars, or same thing with any of the teams I root for. Like there's been times I know, like I grew up a Georgia fan, and winning two in a row now the whole season it's just not as like electric to me as before we hadn't won anything, and I'm just like, this is our year, this is our year. But then you win something, but with the Stallions, I like we've won three in a row, and I'm just as hungry for that fourth one. So
Awesome. So you said you watched the Birmingham Iron. Um,
yeah,
Luis Perez was actually the quarterback for the Birmingham Iron. He is actually coming back to the city of Birmingham this year to take on the Stallions. So what do you think it's going to be him coming back to Birmingham? How do you think that's going to go?
total question. What name did you say? You cut off on my end.
Luis Perez.
Oh, Perez. That's what I figured. I was just making sure that it wasn't McCarron or something. I think Perez will get a warm welcome. Obviously, he's played two games in Birmingham since being an Iron quarterback, both with the Generals. But it was, it's just one of those things where I think I think he'll get a warm welcome. I think there's a lot of people, especially the ones that remember the Iron, that are really tied into him, really like him a lot. Um, but I'll love it, right? I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's on, like they say, he's the spring king, right? James Baker loves to drop that. I will say I just hope by the time that he plays us, he's still the starter. I don't think he'll necessarily lose the job. I just think that there might be a point where he gets, because I know that there's a few milestones that he hasn't reached yet, or whatever, or like the next echelon of that milestone he hasn't reached yet. So it might be something like that we're having to deal with, where like then you give Holton Allers a chance, or Max Duggan a chance, right? Or well, no, Max Duggan went to ballot. Anyways, whatever. But Holton Allers, yeah. So, but yeah, but I think he'll get a warm welcome. I don't think it'll be one of those like boo. Like I think they'll generally cheer. Because even they cheered for I'm forgetting the tight end. You'll remember this. The tight end that was at the Stallions that went to the Breakers. I remember the first game that he was back. They literally cheered when they announced him running
Yeah,
out.
I
Um,
remember who you talking about. I can't think of his name either.
yeah. But yeah, but so it's an interesting thing. I think Birmingham's hardcore, but they're like hardcore in like in the way of like like once a Marine, always a Marine. Like once a Birmingham player, always a Birmingham player, right? So yeah, so I think he'll have a warm welcome. Now, like, will they be cheering for him to get, absolutely destroyed by insert defensive end here? Yeah, for sure, for sure. Will it be loud? Yeah, for sure. But at least for 90 seconds after he runs out the gate, they'll be like, hey, we gotta give you all we can.
Awesome. Um, so you were actually one of the shirtless guys. So tell us how you got into that and uh, how it all got started.
Yeah, so I sometimes get accredited with being an original. I was not an original. I had been riding it with my family. Obviously, I think I've said this multiple times on other podcasts. At sometimes I think my mom is a bigger Stallions fan than I am. Sometimes I'll get texts before I even open my Twitter. It says stuff like, like Magoo coming back or something. Like I literally got a text from her that said Magoo question mark question mark question mark, and I thought it was like him being activated to like the Packers roster or something. No, it was him signing back, right? Um, But so we had to leave because they wanted to leave. They didn't want to wait out the rain delay. But it kind of showed, like I had been pushing. You can ask Luke Miller, Birmingham Sport. You can ask who would have been someone that I knew even in year one. Axe or really any of the guys that are big Stallions fans. I've been pushing for us to be in the end zone since that first game. Because if you remember the first game, there was people in the end zone, and then they hold it up that whole season. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next season they came back, they hold it up until the very like the playoff game that second year, right? So after all that, I was like, hey, if they ever open it, like we got to go. So this year rolls around, and then I develop a relationship with Corey Helvey, just like texting him all the time, being like, hey, like, could the end zone ever open? And then he told me the end zone could open if we sell enough tickets. So I was like, okay, can I get a little ticket link? And then, he gave me a link on the Vivo thing. And then I helped sell some tickets. I never actually asked how many I sold, but I think it was a decent amount. Because like he would always say it's a decent amount, whatever. But past that, obviously we had a lot better ticket sales last year than the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
At least game to game wise, especially the last 3 or 4 games of the year, they were opening up multiple different end zones, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
multiple different end zone sections. And one of the games, which I thought this was the funniest one, I forgot if it was Defenders or no, it wasn't Defenders, it was Roughnecks, at home. So the whole time, one of the security people had like come down to me because like I've been told like by Corey, by some other guys, was like, hey, don't start until the second half. As soon as the sun went down, like mid second quarter, there's people like trying to get over there. And like the 3 of us or 4 of us that had like known previously, we were just waiting until the second half, right? So eventually I got another tap on the shoulder. Like they're like, "Oh yeah, you can go over there now." I'm like, "Cool." And then that was the one. That was probably it wasn't the biggest one, but it was the biggest one in the middle because they moved us to the side after that. Like if you remember the Panthers playoff game, I
Yeah.
got a little picture or a clip of the Jake Bates missing that field goal to the left or right, I forget, but he missed it wide. And I got it from the right side of the field because they had shifted us a little. But for that Roughnecks game, it was literally like a pyramid, like right at the
Mm-hmm.
goalpost. And I know like Corey made that graphic that said like shirtless pyramid being
Yeah.
like right there. So I think it'll be better this year even, but I think just like it was a culmination of a bunch of things. I know that we did talk to quite a few people that were in that original section because I got a bunch of people that showed my pictures of them in the original section, and I wish I could have been, but I can't claim that. But what I can claim is like us wanting to do it again because like I will say, so we did it for the Battlehawks game, just like 7 or 8 of us, and then posted it. And then the next week, we had people come back to us and be like, "Hey, like we didn't even know that they'd let you take your shirt off or whatever. So like whenever we did it that one time, we thought it was like a one time like wonder thing." I was like, "Nah." I'm like, "We just did it without asking." So then we got guys like Luke and Luke on it, Damian Mitchell in it, and a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of other guys. And then the Horsemen started joining in on it. I forget their names. I'm so sorry. They recognize my face probably, so I think calling them the Horsemen's probably good enough. Um, but yeah, but it was really fun. And the funniest thing is like one time, so we had sweet seats last year, so I always had that wristband on me. One of the ladies was like, I don't think these are your seats. I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm just gonna go down there and take my shirt off. And she's like, okay, have fun. And I was like, thank you. But yeah, so but overall, I really like the shirtless section. I encourage everybody to join it, but just shirtless. I have to preface that. And yeah, and I will say to wear like if you wear swim trunks or swimwear, that's usually fine as well. They'll usually let you in the stadium with that. Sometimes they'll ask you to wear like a tank top or something. But yeah, but it's to the but there will be certain verbiage that's actually like put out there because like obviously you have to make it like acceptable for men and women to join.
Hmm.
So you can't just say, shirtless for everybody for obvious reasons. But yeah, but
Yeah, I remember
um
there was an incident last year.
it shouldn't have been an incident. Like
I
I'll talk on it very quickly. Like the difference between a sports bra and a bikini are not that big. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as it covers enough, like I think it should be allowed. But anyways, I don't have the education to speak on any of that. But yeah, but essentially, because it happened right behind me is the only reason that
yeah.
I even talk about it. Is literally I had firsthand experience on how it was handled. Um, and not to say too much, but I don't think the whole thing, like, I think it could have been handled a lot quieter versus like, because she wasn't drunk, but the boyfriend, significant
Yeah.
other was drunk. And I
Hmm.
think that that could have very, very quickly escalated to something else, depending on the fact that he was very, very drunk. But yeah, and do not get very, very drunk at a science game because those are the people that I am like, you can get drunk. Don't get me wrong, because we get plenty of people that are drunk in the South. But if you get drunk enough to like, the slightest little thing, whatever. Anyways, let's move on.
Shout out to Boomer, by the way,
Yeah, shout out Boomer. Hey,
about
I
getting
did
drunk.
my best. So like last year, I was so hectic about showing my face last year. So I did my best to like promote that Boomer was like the original. I think he was. I like he definitely waited out the rain that day. Um,
Hmm.
but I think he was one of the ones that had his shirt off. But I think he was still in the shirtless section. But whenever he came over that one time, I took so many pictures of that man. I love that man. That man, his little Corona cap.
Man, he's a really cool dude. He
Yeah.
always open to conversation and stuff. So, um, but what was it like having Cole Schneider come over all the time with you guys after the games and stuff, taking his
Yeah.
shirt off?
So Cole. Okay. So Cole's like. Okay, so I can't beat the allegations, especially after Senior Bowl week. I'm like a fan of like 30 college football teams, right? When it comes to everything, especially after I became, and I'm not a lukewarm Georgia fan, right? You want to ask me the roster, I'm not gonna end up like those guys on Instagram that can't name, the top 15 best players from the last 10 years, right? But the the more I look into some of these teams that haven't made it yet, the more I'm like, yeah, I support this team or whatever. Especially in UCF is more like a fan base thing, right? Because I've met so many of the UCF guys. So the reason I preface that, Corey Helby, USF guy, Dan Brunenmeister, shout out him, current Atlanta Drive Golf Club social media guy, but he was our social media guy last year for the Stallions. Shout out your social media guys every now and then, fellas. Anyways, but Dan, big time UCF guy. So like I'd asked him one day when I had a video of Schneider, I was like, hey, who are some of the UCF counts to, hit up? And I already knew like the SSN UCF, some of the other guys that are, the network guys or whatever. But he was like, hey, shout out this guy, shout out that guy, shout out whatever. And that was right after I got that little clip of him running. So I got like, a solid 3 or 4 thousand views, which isn't a lot, honestly, right? But just a little clip of him running. And I'm like, dude, like a little 5 second clip going that crazy. Like everybody loves Cole, whether it's Orlando, whether it's us, whether it's I believe I forgot which team he went in the NFL, but everybody loves Cole. He's such a cool cat. I've met him a few times. He probably wouldn't be able to say my name or anything, but I've been able to dap him up or whatever. Matt Casty's that way too. Like I've just bumped into a bunch of O
Hmm.
linemen. But I think it's because I like mugshots. I eat like an O lineman, so it's like we vibe a lot. I remember that first year where it was like whenever you would go to Uptown, you met somebody.
Hmm.
Every time I went to mugshots, there was some big dude in there that probably played defensive line or something. But yeah, but Cole Schneider, he's one of my favorites. I think him like that was almost him being like yes, and then we got a second from like all the other guys. But that little first interaction, I think putting that out there, it kind of said that this one guy supports us. And my favorite thing to happen last year, and you'll probably agree to whenever I say it, whenever the guys at the playoff game like did like the Lambeau leap and like 7 of them were in the stands, like some people just don't understand, right? You look
Yeah.
at some of these other teams and some of their crowds, they might have a bigger crowd. And like I'll shout out, San Antonio, St. Louis. I'm not talking about y'all, right? I'm not talking about y'all. Even DC to an extent, because DC has that little, the little supporter section. But there's four other teams, and some of their crowds, they don't have the same connections with the players that we do. Because it's like, dude, like we had half the team just like up there chilling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, was it Khalil or Carlos last year? Carlos, right?
Carlos.
Right? Yeah, Carlos. Carlos Davis. I thought I was gonna die. I thought, well, I was in because this this huge mountain of a man jumps right at me, and then I like gave him my phone. I'll send that to you so you didn't have it on the loop, but gave him my phone, and he was just like, "Hey, what up? What up?" And it was so crazy. I know like Dan got a bunch of shots of it and everything, but dude, it was like that was my favorite moment because it was just something at the beginning of the season. I was just like, we need to find something to do in the end zone. And then we took that little snippet that the guys at the DC game gave us, and we're like, hey, we're gonna like ride with this. And then all of a sudden, there's like 150 shirtless dudes and like a dozen Stallions players in the end zone. And I really hope they let us dive into that more. Um, I really hope that they just like open that end zone up the whole time, right? Just let whoever wants to be in there be in there. Because honestly, it's one of the best seats in the stadium. I don't know if any of y'all have
Mm-hmm.
been at a Magic City Brigade game. I know you have, or I mean, a Birmingham Legion game with the Magic City Brigade. But the brigade, they sit right there.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they have like drums and stuff. And that's kind of where I was first like, we got to sit in the end zone because it's just you're so close to the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to the home side where you're I think it's 3 feet more elevated.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but it's like you're so close to the ground. If a touchdown happens or a goal happens right in front of you, it's just electric, dude. Like you can hear the crowd pop too, and that type of thing. It just gets you so hyped. Like at some point in the future, UAB football will be back to its greatness, or maybe the UFL will be a much more devoured product in the area. But if there is a hometown crowd in Birmingham that packs that place out, it's going to be insane. Like I remember I went to motocross last year up there, or supercross, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that was crazy because that was also packed out. I think that was the first time I've ever seen the stands sell out for a sporting event. But yeah, but anyways, I sidetracked a lot, but lots of good information, right?
Yeah. You talk about the Supercross. Yeah, my camera's still got mud in it from that.
Does it still smell like if you smell it, does it still smell like
The racing fuel. Yeah.
oh God,
Uh,
one of my guys, shout out Reed Scott Media. He does a lot of like racing stuff down here. I forgot which buddy he had that he had an extra ticket for and they bowed out. He hits me up, it's like 11 o'clock at night the night before. He's like, hey, you got any boots? I'm like, brother, I've not had boot cut jeans or boots in like 7 years, right? I've never had boots, but I used to wear like husky boot cut jeans, right? Because it was badass. Oh, sorry
mm,
if but yeah, um, but yeah, but now I just wear regular athletic jeans or whatever. He's like, well, you better get some because we're gonna go motocross. You gotta dress the part. I'm like, I'm not gonna dress the part. I'm gonna look like a little concrete cowboy, like I am, right? Anyways, we go up there, gives me that wristband. He's like, oh, you're going to love the little, inside the convention center, we're going to have all these cars revving. Dude, I swear I got a contact high or something, right? Just like from the fumes just everywhere. And then like every now and then for like the next like month, I would like sniff a little weird, like or something like that. I'm like, oh, because it's like still on like the nose hairs or something. Like I almost like want to pluck them all out just to clean them or something. Like, oh, but I would go back in a heartbeat, right? Like that was fire. It was electric. Yeah, that little Australian cowboy guy. I was like,
mm,
it was crazy. But yeah, but it was definitely not anything what I expect. I expected like some like redneck nerd stuff, right? Oh sorry, I just like hit the wood down here. Um, some redneck nerd stuff, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, nope, it's just pure rednecks, whatever, right? You can spell the rest. But yeah, but oh, damn, I'm already having PTSD in my nostrils from that.
awesome. But you also talked about the players, seeing the players around uptown and stuff. I used to
Yeah,
see before his retirement, used to see Scooby Wright before every game, doing his laps around the block, getting ready for the game before the game. So
yeah.
I, 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 I really miss Scooby, man. It's gonna be. It was
Uh,
hard to replace him.
I would not be surprised. I know nothing about Scoob, personally, right? But with how everything lines up, I'm almost wondering. So Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina, right? He went to NC State, had that really brutal hit, ends up retiring QB coach at Coastal. I almost wonder if that's a path for him, whether it's going back to Zona, going back to something else. But he's one of those cats that I'm really I think that could totally be a coach. The way that he leads a
Mm-hmm.
room, he signed my arm the other time. He follows us, right? He's a
Yeah,
really cool guy. I remember bumping his fist all the time, and it was him, and then Davion Davis, who I'm so glad to have back. So
absolutely.
flashback, which I'm sure that you probably have some experience with Davion too, but I would like yell at Davion because he was one of my fantasy guys or whatever that year. I was like, Davion, I need like 17 fantasy points. He'd be like, I got you, I got you. And it's like that kind of got me started on like, it was just something random I do, but like from that moment on, now every now and then, if I know the college player, high school player, or whatever, I'll just like throw a stat line out there that they need to hit. Like I remember I told somebody at Troy, it was like a backup receiver. I was like, I need 35 yards out of you. He got like 30, and he's like, man, couldn't get that 35. I'm like, dude, you average like 7. If you like good shit, bro. Like I'm not. Oh, sorry, but like I'm not gonna judge you on that. But yeah, but it's crazy the interactions you can have with these guys when you kind of focus like outside of like the NFL or like the Power Four. But like how close you can get with these guys. And I know it's all parasocial, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never, well, high school and college I have, but I've never really had, like a man-to-man interaction with any of these USFL guys. But yeah, but it's crazy, man.
But uh, so what are you most excited for going into year 4 of the Stallions and year 2 of the UFL?
I'm most excited to see like where I can land up. I know I've been talking to a lot of people about, like, hey, can I get on the field? Hey, can I do this? And like one of the people was like, well, you can't be shirtless on the field. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Right. I get that. But every now and then I kind of want to show people what I can do on the field. Right. Definitely 100% insane jealousy that Luke Miller and Buck, the first year of the USFL, got the chance, or was that, no, that was year two of the USFL, got the chance to be on there and like be on the field, take video. And that was something that I'd always wanted to do, right? That's kind of why I got into high school football, because after kind of getting, like the door that year, I was like, hey, I gotta like, grow my brand somewhere, right? Um but yeah, but I definitely want to see if I can get on the field, get some video, get some photo. Um Actually, the Senior Bowl was my first time taking photo, and like I've just analyzed like how people take photos, the rapidity of how often they post their photos, how long it takes. Like I'm looking at the amount of photos I have, the amount of different topics I can talk about. I probably won't be done talking about the Senior Bowl on my Twitter until like Thursday. And even if like more than likely I'll stop on Tuesday and I'll just hold on to some of those. But it's like, dude, like I know some of these guys or whatever, like some of the UCF guys I got pictures of, some of the Oklahoma State guys I got pictures of. I'm like, that those fan bases, I just have so much like mutuals that I need to post that, because if I post that, like they're gonna love on it, because these fans, whether it's high school, college, whatever. So yeah, so it's like but I'd love to be on the field so that's what I'm kind of most excited for, in anticipation if I can get on the field. So
Awesome. So appreciate you coming on, but tell everybody where they can find you.
yeah, let me make sure I get this right. Okay, so on X, formerly known as Twitter, it is at Southern Charm SP, and then on Instagram, Southern Charm Sports. We are looking to go into, Facebook, TikTok. Um, Not to get into legality or anything, but I was kind of waiting on TikTok to get like, totally banned, and then all of a sudden didn't get banned. So now I'm like, okay, I guess I gotta get on TikTok too, because I'm sure that you're aware. I'm 22. People like younger than me, they love TikTok. I'm kind of right at the edge, like the people that are currently college seniors, we're kind of more on Instagram and stuff like that, and Instagram real warrior, if you will. um but yeah, but some of the younger kids, they love TikTok, man. Like you'll see it on like like college basketball, Twitter, college basketball, Instagram. They'll just have TikToks, or they'll have TikTok dances that they're doing after the wins. like Auburn basketball yesterday. It was like someone had a meme that was like one of those like side by sides or whatever. And it was like a Bruce Pearl after only winning by, like 9 on the road. And he's talking very seriously. He's like, hey, like we made some mistakes. We really needed to play better basketball today, but I'm glad we got out the victory. And it's like Janai Broom, Denver Jones, and Dylan Cardwell. They're just like they're just like dancing, like doing something crazy in the locker room. And I'm like, oh my lord, like the dichotomy of that is crazy. But yeah, but essentially at Southern Charm SP, Southern Charm Sports if it's not there. But yeah, and if you ever need me, feel free to DM me. I do get a ton of DMs, but every now and then I'll just go through them to see, who's in my request box. That's why I like to keep that open. I know some people are like, well, I like to be verified because like it closes off your DMs, but I think that you know, there's plenty of legitimate sources that are not verified. So like you could be, stopping some of your business, stopping some of your growth just because that, you close down your DM and you saved like a headache from a bot that in one click you can delete,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Like you just saw where he's found. So, like I said, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Scout from Southern Charm. And now switching things over to the Birmingham Bulls, we had a full week with those guys this past weekend on Friday and Saturday, and started out with some transactions on the 31st with Drake Glover going on the 14-day IR, and Colton Olnick came back from the IR along with Tyler Pinner. So glad to have those two back. But hate to see Drake Glover on the IR there. So, but on Friday they wound up taking on the Fayetteville Marksmen, uh, and things got started with Mason Bullpit in the net for the Marksmen and Lottie in for the Bulls. Things got started with Jamie Dorsey getting called for an unsportsmanlike, brought on by a Fayetteville cross check, which was also called just 6:21 into the game. Just under 6 minutes later, the Bulls went on the power play for a cross check. Kip Ledzianko wound up capitalizing on that just 22 seconds in. And then just 3 minutes later, Taylor Brierly found himself in the box for a hold, sending the Bulls on a penalty kill. And then after the great successful penalty kill, the Bulls went on the power play with 19 seconds left in the opening period. In the second, though, the Bulls would have gone on the power play for a trip, but Colton Olnick was also charged with an embellishment penalty. 17 seconds later, the Bulls went on the penalty kill again, this time for a Kyle Powell slash. After yet another successful penalty kill, Tyler Pinner found the back of the net with just 8:45 left to play in the second. In the third, it got started with the Bulls on the power play just 7:33 into the final period there. Unfortunately, the Marksmen wound up scoring a shorthanded goal just seconds before the power play expired. Then 3.5 minutes later, we saw Tony Pentagon finding the back of the net off of a fast break and a pass from Jamie Dorsey. And then with 3 left to play in the game, the Marksmen wound up pulling Bopit. And then just 30 seconds later, Troy McTavish dumped the puck in the empty net to seal the victory for the Bulls. So great victory there in that game. On Saturday, they went at it again with Ryan Kinney this time in the net for the Marksmen and Stewie in for the Bulls. The Bulls went on the power play for a whole just 7 minutes left in the first period. And then they wound up pulling Stewie to try to increase their chance of capitalizing. but they wound up going on a 2-man advantage for a high stick just 20 seconds later, sending Stewie back on the ice. Taylor Brierley was able to capitalize on one of them, though, just a few seconds in. And then in the second period, it got started with McGregor Sinclair getting charged with a slash. And then 40 seconds later, Phil Ledzianko was able to collect a shorthanded goal there. 2 minutes later, Aiden Litka was charged with a hold. And then both teams wound up getting charged with roughing penalties about 2 minutes after that. Then, just after, Trevor Thurston was charged with a cross check, sending the Bulls on the penalty kill. And then the Bulls were successful in killing that penalty, but the marksmen were able to score just prior to the 12-minute mark. 2.5 later, they wound up scoring again, just struggling there for the defense there. And then the Bulls wound up pulling Stewie just seconds before the 18-minute mark. And then just seconds later, it wound up ticking to that mark. The Bulls went on the power play for a high stick, sending Stewie back on. And the third got started with the marksman scoring just 7:46 into the period. A minute and 24 seconds later, the Bulls went back on the power play, this time for a boarding. 1.5 later, the Bulls wound up going back on the power play for another boarding. Then Taylor Brierley capitalized halfway through the power play. And then with 2.5 minutes later, the marksman scored again. With 2 to play, the Bulls wound up pulling Stewie, but a minute later, the marksmen were able to capitalize and get down the ice and dump the puck in the empty net to seal it for Fayetteville. And then the game ended with a nice brawl between Trevor Thurston dropping gloves with Ryan Nolan of the marksman, and then Kyler Matthews had to have a little piece of it with him taking on John Makovich. So, just a little brawl just in the weekend homestand. As it stands right now, Birmingham is 16-16-3, and the Peoria Rivermen are sitting at first place, followed by Huntsville at second. Fayetteville Marksmen are third, and the Bulls are sixth. It looks like we're doing a little bit better than what we have been, but we got some upcoming games. Taking a trip up to Moline, Illinois this coming up weekend to take on Quad City for a couple of games. Switching things over to the Birmingham Squadron, who wound up having a nice road trip this past week. Starting the week off, bringing Carlo Makovic back from New Orleans. And on Wednesday, we saw them take on the Raptors 905 up there in Canada. The first quarter, 905 came out shooting hot, establishing a quick lead early, and they wound up capitalizing on the Squadron struggling to turn the ball over early there. And then the Squadron wound up, like I said, struggling to shoot, as they have been a little bit lately. But then they wound up ending the first quarter with a double-digit lead, 36-23. So struggling there early. But then the second quarter, the Birmingham started sinking some shots and playing better defensively. They were beginning to get a little bit more behind the arc. But then they wound up cutting the lead a little bit, but kept it close throughout the second quarter, but really cut it close to going into the halftime. Just cut it to 10 points going into the locker room there. Then the Squadron wound up carrying that momentum into the third quarter and wound up taking the lead for a bit in the third quarter there. but they wound up only having a 3-point lead uh, for the Raptors going into the fourth quarter. And then coming into the fourth, they wound up trading blows and kept it really close there for the first half of the fourth quarter there. But they wound up kind of pulling away a bit toward the end of the fourth quarter. The Raptors did, and wound up winning the game 122 to 112 on their home court. So seeing a lot better ball from the Squadron there, not giving up toward the end of the game when it's still close. So even when they're behind, they're actually able to clear their head. Some well-needed timeouts by Coach Saint, really helping them, get that going. So got to shout out to good coaching, good playing, good mentality all around for the team, even in a loss. On Sunday, they wound up taking on the Maine Celtics, so up there in Portland. And then the game started out with both teams trading baskets and leads throughout the first half of the first quarter, with the Celtics able to maintain the lead through the second half of the opening quarter there. But Birmingham kept it close as the first quarter closed out 30 to 27. And then in the second period, we saw some good shooting and defense by Birmingham, taking the lead there and holding it until midway mark of the second quarter. The Celtics wound up slowly pulling away down the stretch of the first half, and the score sitting at 53-45 going into the locker room there at halftime. Birmingham came out of the locker room hot, cutting away at the lead. Birmingham overtaking the lead with just under 4 to play in the third quarter, and they traded leads through the final minutes of the third there. And in the fourth, the Squadron wound up quickly retaking the lead. But then midway through the fourth, they wound up trading leads again. And the second half, there was about 2.5 left in the game. Celtics retook the lead with some help of some Squadron fouling. And the Squadron did well to stay in it, but it didn't give up, keeping it real close to the final minute, but with it not being enough to clinch the win, losing up there in Portland, Maine, 195. So, like I said, really good, seeing a lot better defense than what we have been. Just got to get that shooting better, sinking some, consistent shots there. As it stands right now, Birmingham is sitting at 3-11, and in last place still in the Eastern Conference of the NBA G League. So, still got a lot of basketball to play, so not too worried about it. Tonight, they are going to be up in New York taking on the Long Island Nets. And then on Tuesday, they're back home to take on the College Park Skyhawks again. And then it's actually going to be 2:05 night. They've got a t-shirt giveaway. And then probably guest appearances from a bunch of the Birmingham mascots. So can't wait for that. I love seeing stuff like this. I think Birmingham Stallions did it a couple years ago. So be great to see. Switching over to the Birmingham Legion. They had a friendly on Saturday with the Atlanta United. It was nice to be back at Protective Stadium. It was a beautiful day. Perfect day for some soccer. So just perfect temperature. Not too hot, not too cold. But the pitch got started with Atlanta keeping it in the Birmingham zone. In their defensive zone. So they did well trying to keep it in midfield though, but they were really good at protecting the corners, knocking them out. But defensively, Birmingham did a great job. Matt Van Okel kept the goal for the first half and did it really well until Birmingham wound up seeing a single goal get past him in the 11th minute off of a header from a free kick. So it wasn't, live ball action, but came off a dead ball penalty there. And then when Birmingham did get the ball in their striking zone, the forwards really good pressing and making good shots there. But amazing goaltending from Atlanta. Some amazing saves from these guys. No wonder they're in the MLS. So, second half saw Birmingham eventually struggling, to maintain possession, and then seemed like Birmingham started showing their exhaustion there as they struggled to maintain possessions there, and Atlanta finally scored again off of a Birmingham own goal. So, but in the loss, Birmingham looked decent comparative to what we saw last year, late last year, and then they were able to get some film on these guys, some of the newer guys on the team, and the trialists and all. So they can start working on building that chemistry and all of that. So, and also, I'll be honest with you, Birmingham Legion fans have a reason for optimism going into the season after that performance that they had this game. So, again, just a preseason game means nothing. So, we'll see how it goes through the rest of the preseason. After the game, though, we caught up with Coach Sohn after the game, and here's what he had to say about his initial thoughts of the game there.
It was good. You always learn from the group, and it highlighted some areas that we're still working to improve upon. But early, we've only been together 2 weeks. A lot of positives and a lot of good energy from our forwards pressing. And then the second group showed some highlights too. I thought Roz did really well. Teased him up to go to national team camp, which is great. But some positives from the trialists too.
He was also asked about the inability to game plan, considering he had no film on some of these guys. And this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, we take our pride in game planning. Obviously, when you don't have a team that you play and there's no video on them, you're going into a game and just worrying about your structure and everything else. So the things we talked about were pretty good. I think we can still improve our speed of play. Some of our changing the point of attack, but that's all stuff we recognized. And again, they're a good team, so you always expect a good challenge that way.
After that, he talked about the team's chemistry and how they're building it. And here's what he said in his words.
Yeah, I think our mentality was like the work ethic is the most important thing to make sure we get that right now. In the first half, I thought we pressed them really well, put a lot of energy into the attack in that respect. And then the second half, I still felt like some of the new guys adjusted quite well to the speed of play because, that's the first time they're seeing professional soccer. So it was good. It was a good learning experience for us.
After that, we talked to newcomer forward Luca Dorado, and he talked about this being his first match.
Very emotional, having some butterflies, but after a couple minutes, that pressure, of making it, it's releasing. So good to be out there, with the teams, a lot of new faces. I'm very happy to be here. So very good.
After that, he was then asked about the atmosphere at Protective, and this is what he had to say about it.
It was crazy, I never had the experience, of the band and everything, everybody singing the whole time. So it was great to be in the atmosphere. Of course, a little hard to understand people on the field, but you get used to it.
Then he talked about how things have been going so far with the team. So this is what he said in his own words.
For sure. It's a new team, you're going to see a lot of faces, a lot of different connections, so it's been very good 2 weeks on the preseason. So everybody's trying to connect with everybody, have team bonding and everything. So everything is good on the field. So I think it's good. So very happy to be out there with those guys, and excited to start the season.
And then after that, we got to talk to Enzo Martinez, the one and only. And he started out talking about his initial thoughts and ideas of how the game went.
Obviously, you're disappointed because you lost the game and you wanted to give the fans a good time, celebrate a home goal. But obviously, the crowd was awesome, was great. The level of the game was high quality. But most important, the things that we saw for us as a team, the first time that we played 45 minutes against an opponent, after having 6 guys in the starting lineup that are new. So that's a big thing. Saw really positive things and things that you can work on, and that's all you can ask after a game like that.
He was then asked about how many of the new, how well the new guys performed, and this is what he had to say.
I think they were great, right? It's everything. This game is weird because it looks so easy from the outside, right? Because you're viewing where every single player is. You're calm. You're having yourself a drink. You're sitting down, but in that moment, when it's high intensity, high pressure, it's really easy to kind of give into that and not do a good job. And the guys handle themselves really well in high pressure situations. I thought we did well at the back, keeping the ball, having the ball, which that's the first block if you want to build a good team. And I think that that's a positive thing that we can take from today and from all the guys that stepped up.
He then talked about how the difficulty of building the chemistry, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, it's difficult because it takes time. You cannot. That's something you can't rush, and you can't. There's no magic pill for that. It just takes time. But the really good thing is that after the first half, everyone is talking, everyone is communicating, everyone is giving their opinion of what they saw, what we need to do better. And sometimes, you get teams that don't do that, especially with new players that come in. That kind of hold back and don't speak a lot, but not with this new players, not with this new group. Everyone is trying to figure out how we can be better and how we can be better for the next game. And I think that's a really positive thing.
He then spoke about the team's influence in this community and what it means to the Birmingham community, all Central Alabama altogether.
Yeah, I mean, to me that's the most important thing of the game. My reward is that I get to do this and I get to have fun, but it's so important to be able to build something that the kids from here from Birmingham can actually be here soon. You have local kids in our team right now that maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, it wasn't even a reality. And through the investment of owners and the staff and everyone in the city who's buying in, you get to build something to return back to the community, which is massive. For a kid to be able nowadays to grow up and go to a high level soccer and say I can be there one day, it makes the difference between making it and not. So I mean, we're so, us as players, we're blessed that we get to do that and we get to kind of influence the next generation. And it's probably the most rewarding part of this whole job.
And then with that, just a great, conversation with those guys. So it was a great weekend, but got a lot more to come. In closing, the Bulls are on the road this coming up week. The Squadron are in town this weekend on Thursday. So we're trying to keep you updated on all roster updates and score updates through the weeks, and keep you updated on anything we find out, news related to Birmingham sports. But with that, this is all I have for this week. Good night.